Parent Entrepreneur Power. Conversation number 195.
Parent Entrepreneur Power.
Wait, what? It's Power!
This is the podcast for parents juggling the tough choices required for success in business while putting family first. Hi, I'm Mary Catherine Johnson, and I share the ups and downs and dirty truths of profits and potty training while chatting with successful parent entrepreneurs from all walks of life. Are you powered up? Hey there, Power Parents. Guess who? Mary Catherine Johnson here, and I get to share a conversation. I've already got to chat with this gentleman on his show, and I am so excited to have him come on and chat with y'all and just share some of the amazing things that he's been doing with our wonderful Power Parents. So, welcome to the conversation, Brendan Allen Barrett. He is the founder of Start in Phoenix, and he's also the host of The Business of Family and Selling. Hey there, Brendan. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
You know what? I cannot complain. I'm even better than not complaining. It's a gorgeous day outside. Fall is trying to break through the summer heat, and I got to wake up this morning and do stuff that I really love and be with a family that's really pretty incredible.
Right.
So I'm doing great. Right?
It's cooling off here too. It's only in the 80s.
I think it's about in the 80s here too. And where are you?
Yeah. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Oh my gosh.
Phoenix Metro.
No wonder you say only in the 80s. Wow. Yeah. No, that's definitely a bit warm for me. All right. So let's start off where we start off with everybody. And basically, we all have a different path in life and all have a different path on becoming a parent and an entrepreneur. And that's why I call this our once upon a time story, because it basically is like the story of our life. And it doesn't start in one place where all of a sudden we wake up one day and go, oh, I'm going to start having kids and start a business. Doesn't work that way. So what is your once upon a time story? How did you become a parent and an entrepreneur at the same time?
So I started my career selling back in college and worked as a salesperson for a couple of different organizations. And after graduating from college, moved to Southern California. Thought I was going to get a job in communications or marketing. I'd gotten a degree in public relations, and so that's what I thought I was going to do when I landed in Southern California, packing up all my stuff and moving from Southern Wisconsin, where I was going to school, to California. And the first serious gig I got was a sales job, and it was for a construction company that was much more familiar with independent sales reps rather than employee salespeople. And so for a while there was back and forth, me wanting to be an employee for somebody and them wanting me to be my own business, right? And so there was back and forth with that. And over the years, I learned to sell. A lot of that was I did pretty well in a lot of cases by making up for my lack of experience and skill with extra time. Then fast forward to 2014, and I found out I was a father. Not that I was going to be a father, but that I was in fact already a father. So got hit with that news really quick. And so wanting to be the father I'd always wanted to be, I had a lot of great examples of men, of great fathers, of great parents in my life. I always knew I wanted to be a parent, but I wasn't even married. Right? This milestone was ahead of schedule. I didn't get to do the 9 months of planning that a lot of people get to do. And so, after some soul searching and some real deep dives into different subjects that I needed help with at the time, personal finance, how do I work smarter rather than harder, I ultimately got to the point where a light bulb went off. I need to start building a business, something that's going to not only set me on fire and make me super excited, but spit out money when I don't want to work or can't work, because now I have other things to do with my time. I have a little boy to raise. I'm due to get married for the first time here in November, and hopefully the only time, right?
Is that a Freudian slip or what?
So, well, when I tell people that I have a little, a 3-year-old, they always want to ask if I've been married before. And so, no, I haven't. But yeah, I mean, getting into business, knowing that, okay, this time it's for real. I'm going to find a way to make it work. I'm done with self-employment. I still have contracts with construction companies and engineering firms that I represent, but I'm finding ways to be more of a marketer rather than an independent sales rep. And I'm building a business on that. So a lot of that has to do with being a dad and soon to be a husband, and wanting to be a rock star in those roles in my life, and also wanting to be able to pursue the things that excite me as far as work goes. I mean, we got to pay the bills. It might as well be exciting, right? So
I hope so. Yeah, I don't know any other way to be other than getting up in the morning and really enjoying what I'm doing, because otherwise, what a grind, right? I mean,
well, and there's pursuing what you want to pursue in life, chasing down goals, whether it's being a great dad. There's in the short 3 years that I've had as a dad, right? There have been times where being a dad wasn't the most fun thing to do that day, but you grind through it because you know that there's a better thing on the other end, or the other side of that ridge. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And the same thing happens with your business. The same thing happens in, a lot of what I do is outbound stuff, right? We're chasing down 5-figure, 6-figure plus deals, and those are lengthy sales processes oftentimes. And my best tactics, my most successful tactics have been, getting in front of people, old school dialing for dollars and showing up in people's businesses and then walking them down a buyer's journey and closing a deal that makes sense for everybody, right?
yeah.
And there's parts of that aren't super exciting, like following up for the 10th time to do the thing that they were super excited to do, but you got to fight for their bandwidth just to make the thing happen.
Yeah, definitely. So I gotta unpack a little bit of that. So I want to go back a little bit. I understand completely how people in our society are pretty much used to a standard life path. You meet someone, you get married, you have kids, right? I get it that they don't understand when there's something different from that. And they have to be curious and ask. You know what? That's cool. That's fine. It doesn't matter why or where or how. There's another little human that's walking the earth. He's walking at 3. So yeah, he's walking the earth, and you get to be his dad. However had that happened, doesn't matter to me, really. Yeah, you got it. Be the best dad you could be. That's amazing. But now let's go back to the business part, because you mentioned selling and doing long sales process and high ticket gigs. Now, but you also mentioned being more of a marketer rather than a seller. So tell me, or expanding marketing. Tell me a little bit more about that. What do you mean?
So when I went to school, I got a degree in communications with an emphasis in PR. While I'd done some selling, I was the kid mowing the neighbors' lawns. Well, I had to go knock on the door to get the job. I had to go flyer the neighborhood to find people who wanted me to pull their weeds or paint a fence, that kind of thing. So I'd been selling for a long time, but for some reason, by the time I got to college and thought, I'm going to graduate and someday I'm going to start a business, and I don't know what that is right now, but I'm probably going to have to sell my thing somehow, so I should learn how to communicate. But being a salesperson wasn't something that was necessarily held in high esteem in my family growing up. All you heard about were the
sleazy salespeople.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The Kirby vacuum guy who interrupted dinner
Dinner.
to sell mom
Yes.
vacuum,
Yeah.
or the telemarketers who called at 7 o'clock at night, 7:30 at night when you're winding down trying to go to bed, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so I was very hesitant to do that, but to me, public relations seemed like a an undercover way of influencing people, influence the influencers so that they can tell people to buy from you. And I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome.
Much
Let's
better than the
explore
sleazy
this,
stuff. Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so that's what I started to pursue my junior year of college. But I also got into selling. My first sales training was for Student Painters. So it's one of those organizations that teaches students the skills of entrepreneurship through the exercise of running a branch of an exterior painting business, right? And so that was my first sales training. And from there, I started to work in sales. And by the time I got to college, those were the best opportunities for me because I had already cut my teeth in it. And again, I kept going down that rabbit hole of the only marketing function that I was fulfilling was the act of selling, the one-on-one communication that was required for some of these things. And so I basically parked that marketing and mass communication skill set and learning at college, right? But then when my bandwidth was starting to be tested by the new responsibility of being a father, and some of that stuff was really shaky too, because like here is this brand new baby who I have to go through the process of establishing paternity and legal parenting rights so that he has his father and he grows up knowing his father and all these other things. It wasn't just, oh, I've got to take care of this kid. Oh, I've got to go through this whole process so I can take care of this kid. And so it really became, and it really became a question of bandwidth. And that question of bandwidth, how do I work smarter rather than just more hours? And so then I started to crack open the textbooks again. I started to pick things up where I'd left them in college and find out ways to attract people to me rather than just going knocking on everybody's door. And there's still a great deal of that I do, right? Because that's important and that's what's required. But how do I roll that into more automated processes so that every victory I have, whether it's establishing a certain amount of rapport or whatever, it can be built upon. And again, you start to build up some really serious momentum. And marketing, more of the marketing activity, that's the solution so far. And of course, there's there's a million ways to do that, right? And different tools for different tasks. But yeah, that's why I think of myself now as more taking on the role of a marketer than a salesperson.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Because that is really, one really can't exist without the other. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably heard the analogy of, marketing through the lens of like the singles bar, right? Like sales is a process of marketing. The singles bar is where the marketing is happening, right? Me going up and telling you how great I am, that's sales, right? But if I can get your friends to tell you how great I am and that you should give me your phone number, then, that's again, that PR, that's that undercover communication and persuasion. And if I can, buy drinks for everybody, have the bartender buy drinks, that's advertising, right? I'm winning you over by getting your attention, by doing nice things for you. And so, yeah, I mean, all of these things play into your greater marketing mix. Sales is important. I help people with sales. I help people with prospecting activity because it works, and in certain places it's an absolute necessity. And then I also help and train folks through the sales conversation. Okay, we've won their attention. We've established a little bit of a rapport. How do we play doctor and dial into what they really need and where that overlaps what we do really well and find win-win opportunities for everybody?
Yes. And of course, it all starts with being in the right singles bar. Right? I mean, that's your niche, right?
Absolutely.
So you got to be in the same room with the people who really want what you have.
Targeting is important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're not going to be very effective with all that other stuff, The buying the drinks, she'll be buying the drinks for the wrong people.
Buying
Right?
the drinks for the wrong people.
Yeah.
And my approach to my combination of any of those tactics might be different in different bars too. So like I might be interested in people in both bars, right?
Yeah.
But the way I approach somebody in this bar versus that bar could be completely different if I, to produce a similar outcome, right? To get the sale.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. So I was just on my I have a private Facebook group specifically about Messenger. As you know, that's what I do. And really, that's exactly where we are right now with Messenger specifically. It is pretty much applicable across the board. Any business that actually has any of its market, any prospects on Facebook should be marketing through Messenger. And so the way you do that, just like you said, I'll be buying drinks differently over on this side versus over on that side. But you're still going to go into all these different bars and say, hey, hello, if this is how you're trying to pick up people, then I have a better way. My percentages are much higher over here than they are with your techniques that you're using right now. That's really all we're talking about. As a marketer, if I'm not selling directly to those people, I'm not selling a widget to those people in the bar. I'm selling a tool that they can use to make themselves more palatable in that bar, right? That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So what amazing analogies you have. So, and then we have to think about the type of drink.
I've been working on that one for a while. So that was the one that was handed to me, right? Is getting your friends or her friends to talk favorably about you and generate some interest. That's PR, right? Buying drinks is advertising. Yeah. The whole thing is a marketing mix. You going up directly, after everybody else has weighed in and you've got the attention, you're a nice guy because you bought the drinks and her friends said you're a super nice guy. Then coming in with sales, we've established the rapport. Like that's a super efficient system, right? Yeah. But the customer or the girl I take home that night is a very different customer or girl compared to the one who just gives me her phone number. That's right. Or I only go as far as the phone number, right?
Right.
Then we can go through the courting process because the girl who goes home with me that night, it's going to be really awkward in the morning, right? And I'm probably never going to see her again, right?
You're going to have buyer's remorse. Right?
By a walk of shame. And, if I go in and instead of coming in hot and trying to do a bunch of deals, find somebody who, I can establish the phone number and then I can go through a more lengthy courting process. And if I'm a business, there's ways of doing that and filtering through which customers you want to take to which level, because some people it's going to be a great fit. Yeah. In other cases, going on a couple of dates, they were a nice person, but it's not the one, right?
Yes.
And so, you could get the phone number, you could, the chatbot subscription or the email address might be access to the bedroom, but that doesn't mean you guys are getting in bed necessarily. You're still in the courting process, right? Yep. And there's timelines for each of these steps. And if you try to rush things or, as opposed to taking the appropriate amount of time to let your persuasion sink in, you're going to get a different result. It might seem similar on the surface, but it might shorten the relationship and what the relationship is capable of doing. And so what I like to do, right, is establish rapport and we can take it a step at a time. A lot of business owners get a little worried about that because if I don't make the sale, I don't have revenue, the lights don't stay on, this whole thing goes away. Right. Well, you can sell elements of your sales process. A lot of people are going for these huge deals when they could chop their thing up into segments and create a value ladder and start escalating prospects through subsequent purchases. And through that, you're building rapport. Now your next bigger offer is going to be easier for them to digest when otherwise, they hadn't bought anything from you and you hadn't delivered anything to them yet. That number might be super scary and a super turnoff. The conversation ends. But
Yeah.
if they bought from you, you're developing a relationship, right? And your weight, your words, your communication, your marketing is going to have more weight every time you ask them to do something new or something bigger. And they're going to be more willing to do it. But you as a business owner might also decide you're not going to make certain offers to certain people because you dealt with them on a small scale. I don't want to get married to this person and have to spend 20 years with them.
Right. Right.
And truth be told, I mean, some people spend 20 years with somebody, but they're not going to spend 50 years with them because
Yeah.
that was enough,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Uh,
That's right.
so you could take that analogy much farther if you
Oh
want.
my gosh. And then not only that, that's very true. And so that's basically a true funnel, the way that I look at it. Because you're giving people, I look at it, and I don't know whether this is how you look at it too, Brendan, but I look at it as giving people a chance to reject me. I have no, and I needed to look at it that way because I was one of those when I first started out trying to sell my services or sell products or sell whatever, that if they didn't buy, it was like, oh, why they didn't like me? What do you mean? Why wouldn't they buy? My thing is amazing. They must not have liked me. And I took it personally and I was all emotional about it and blah, blah, blah. So someone said something to me once when I started on this messenger journey, actually. And it was actually a mentor with Nick Unsworth, Life on Fire. I got to chat with one of their incredible coaches, incredible guy. And I'm sorry, I can see his face, but I cannot remember his name. So I'm going to put that in the show notes. But this guy was really incredible. In 10 minutes short, he had me down. He knew exactly what I was talking about. And that was it, that I need to invite people to reject me. Once I looked at it that way, it was no longer scary. Mm-hmm. Because I only want people who are either white hot with wanting what I have, mm-hmm. or don't want it at all. I don't want the lukewarm. Mm-hmm. Lukewarm doesn't really get me anywhere. That's where a job is, right? That's where I made myself self-employed as a job. Mm-hmm. I want white hot. I want people who are just as excited about what I'm doing as I am and mm-hmm. see the value that much. So if you need to chop it up, like you said, that's an amazing thing to do. And all along the way, they may only need those first three things. And then they're done and gone. And that's cool. And there are going to be a very few people who go all the way through to mm-hmm. your highest ticket thing. But there are going to be a lot of people who do maybe one or two or three of the little things. And that's cool. Mm-hmm. That's as hot as they were. Mm-hmm. And you only want those people at the high ticket items that are white hot for what you have to offer.
Well, and they may come, and breaking it up, it solves the problem of cash flow, right? Yeah. Rather than having to do these really long sales processes. Right. And where I've done most of my selling is in the world of civil engineering and construction, where we're talking 6, 12, 18 months, 24 months to go from first touch to done deal. Yeah. And so if you're not getting, if for the big project, the project that we were after, right? So if you're not selling the consulting and the design and all these other things along the way, you're going to put a lot of time and energy into closing that deal. And there's a possibility it doesn't ever close, right?
Yes.
So it solves that problem. But yeah, it also allows you to qualify. If you're not willing to spend $100 on this first consultation, you're not going to spend 5 figures on the design. You're not going to spend 6 figures. There's no way you're going to spend 6 figures on the thing. So it's like, boom, neither of us have to waste our time.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Wow. Okay. So tell me, so you're still working in that world then? You're still consulting mm-hmm. for that world or doing sales for that world. Is that right?
So I'm still selling. I'm still coordinating projects. So we serve a lot of the public agencies, departments of transportation, Department of Defense, energy companies. And so I do that. Plus now some of my bigger training clients are in that world. They've seen me do the thing and they're like, oh, you should come work for us. And I'm like, I don't need another job.
Yeah, right.
Here's my here's my price. I'll come in and I'll train and set the thing up and it'll run by itself. And we'll only work with each other as much as we need because I come inside, I'm gonna get bored real quick because this is all you need me for. and I'm
Right.
too expensive.
Right.
And
How
it's not going to work
wonderful.
out real well long term. But if we do this on a transactional basis and only where, my skills and my wants in the world overlap what you need and what you want in the world, then everybody's going to be a lot happier, right?
So
So,
tell me a little bit more about that, though, Brendan. So you've been actually selling in this particular world,
mhm.
and doing basically selling the whole process of these large projects and the pieces of it as well. And now, who are these people that are coming and asking you to come and teach them? So who do you teach? Do you teach other
Well,
sales organizations or what?
other members of the sales team. So it could be the salesperson, it could be the rep, or it could be the sales development rep, the person who puts the sales rep in the important meetings. Like that's a very low level
Mm-hmm.
conversation. That's
Mm-hmm.
lead generation,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so not everybody comes into the world knowing how to do it. And the guys who are really good at the actual sales conversation, like that's a lot of busy work that's below what their level of expertise is at. So
Right.
you want to have those guys, in the higher level meetings because that's where they shine brightest and they're the most productive for the business owner. So it's either some level of management or ownership that has me come in to work with, whatever level of the sales ladder needs help. Is it setting appointments? Is it walking a prospect through a discovery phase so we can put together an offer that makes sense for everybody? Or is it, closing the deal? Typically, it's one of the first two. Like, how do we get in the right room,
Yeah.
and how do we have the right conversation in that room so that when we give them the price, they sign on the dotted line without hesitation,
Right.
right? Those are the white
Right.
hot people. Those are the super
Yes.
excited people.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's usually ownership, but then I also have independent, solopreneurs who have a skill set and they're really good at their thing, but they don't know how to go out and sell the thing. They don't know how to find the right people, get in the right, they're their own sales force right now and they're not super efficient. So they're trying to find ways to shorten that sales process or break things up into a value ladder rather than going broke chasing the big deal when they could have been selling the steps to the big deal.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my goodness, that's so true. So all of us need that sales process. If we are entrepreneurs and we make our living selling something,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a product or a service or a digital product or whatever, we have to know that process
Mm-hmm.
and be very good at it. And unfortunately, in the wonderful internet world where there's lots of wonderful, sweet Kool-Aid that we've all drunk in the past that just says, oh, do this and you'll make millions, or oh, just follow this plan and it's 0 to 100,000 in 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
All that kind of stuff. We've got all these shiny things going at us that really don't work for very many people. Um, it still is, like you said, relationships. It still is communication. It still is getting with someone. You can do a lot of that stuff ahead of time, and the majority of the work is that, right? It is the warming up process. It is the courting process. That's the majority of the work,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Finding out which bar to be in and which people are in that bar and what they really want and all that kind of stuff is really the majority of the work. So that once you
Mm-hmm.
pinpoint that, you can offer exactly what it is they want, and it is a no-brainer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
wow. So um, this is a process that can really cross many different platforms. It doesn't have to be just building and design and all that kind of stuff. Have you branched to other types of industries and
Yeah, so the there's a courting process there too, right? So the different folks that I interact with who are potential prospects for training or coaching, they're going to start at different rungs of the ladder, right? So a construction company that's seen me sell and I've already established rapport with, they already know I can do the thing and they trust me and we can jump right into a 2 week training with certain members of their staff and get them off the ground and running. Other folks, they are their sales team. And so it's me and them working one on one. And it's just one-time session, right? And from that one-time session, I'm giving them tools to use. I'm walking them through certain processes or pointing them in the right direction. From there, I might, realize that I don't ever want to work with this person again. I'm never going to pitch them on a 5-week package. I might realize that, oh, yeah, they would really benefit from a 5-week package that focused on this thing, because that's the next big domino in their way to getting from where they are to where they want to be. And so I know exactly how to structure that 5-week thing, and whether or not they're qualified, because, well, they paid me already. I know more about them and what they do and what they value. So, okay, I can put together this package that they're going to be all over. And then we make that offer, rather than hitting this freelance writer up with, a bill for $2,500 worth of training that they don't know how to use yet.
Yep. Oh my goodness. Yes. So is that beginning part, that courting process, is that all automated already, or do you still communicate directly with people before you put them into any kind of automated process?
Yeah, so I'm a big prospector. I mean, I teach people cold calling and cold email and cold, messenger prospecting. My philosophy of prospecting is that it's not even really a sales activity. It's a pre-sales activity. We're going out into the market and we're gathering information. It's super cool if the information that we gather is this person in front of me has a problem I can fix and the money to pay for it. They're a hot qualified prospect. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. But not every conversation I'm going to have is that the important thing that I'm going to learn. So I shouldn't be pitching everybody that I talk to. I'm qualifying. I'm getting their attention. I'm exchanging in a dialogue. I am qualifying over and over and over. And if I qualify right, I can probably get their permission to sell. Like, they'll raise their hand.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yes. They do, don't they?
Somehow I got them, to like me, to find me interesting, typically because I was interested in them first. That's usually how that psychology works, is get them talking about them, what they're excited about, and what pain points they have about, I'm super excited about this, and if I could only solve this problem, I'd be there. Right. Do my skill sets and do my offers overlap with that pain point? Yes, no, maybe. If they do, great. Hey, I can help you with that. Right. Or I could spin a narrative about how I did that with somebody else, and they come back with the question, well, how much would it cost for you to do that with me?
Yes.
Permission one, let's enter discovery phase. Let's really play doctor out this thing and make an offer that works for everybody.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. That, with this whole bot messenger thing, I look at it, I have a 3-pronged approach, and I'm sure it sounds like you and I are on the same page with this. Mm-hmm. So the first prong is when I'm looking at any kind of a marketing or even sales, if I'm going to try and teach someone or do something in marketing for someone, for some type of business, I start with my own path. So I can't really jump into something I don't know anything about. Mm-hmm. So maybe other people are much smarter and faster than I am, but I need to start with something I know. So I start with my own path. It's 3 Ps: the path, the problem, and the profit. So the path is, where in my experience do I know enough about the industry that I can go in and I can speak their language and understand the problems in that industry. I can only do that from my previous experience. Mm-hmm. And so I start with my path. Where along that path? For me, it's parents in business or staffing. I was in the staffing industry or weight loss industry. So I've been in all those industries. I'm an old gal. Okay, so I've had a lot of careers. I've had a lot of lives. So on this life, I'm in messenger, but all those other lives, I've really experienced a lot of different, not a huge amount, but a few different industries. So which one of them do I know enough about currently and am interested in that I can solve a problem? So that messenger can solve a problem for that. That's where I start with the path. Then what's the problem? All right. Is it getting weight loss people who want to lose weight and helping them lose weight? Is it people getting people to hire your staffing firm? Is it parents trying to build businesses? Is it consulting them on how to build their business and raise their family at the same time? So what's the problem with that? And then are they able to pay me? Right? Do they have enough money to pay me? The beauty industry, I was in the beauty industry trying to do marketing for the beauty industry, and most of them don't have enough to pay me. They just don't, because
Yeah.
they're solopreneurs working a table, doing skincare, whatever. The salon owners, maybe, the spa owners, maybe, but not the one-on-one person. They just don't. So,
Well, it's funny because like I find myself at that crossroads myself. Like there are folks who need my help but don't have the revenue for it to be worth my time yet. And so, we do one-off coaching session. I point them in the direction. I give them all the support that they can handle and that they can afford, and they can take that and accomplish some things and then come back for the next thing.
that's it.
Right?
That's it.
And so, we might go back and forth. They might be part of my marketing moving forward. I'm still in email. You've won me over on the chatbot thing, but I haven't had the bandwidth to make it happen for me yet. So like some people I go out to, and the thing I learn is that they are not a qualified prospect, but they could be one day. Right? Or they might know some qualified prospects. Yeah. And so I can leverage that conversation, that experience, like you're talking about, this thing I know, I can leverage that to find more people or to change my targeting so that I'm not going out and talking to these unqualified people. I'm focusing more on qualified folks based on the things I can see from afar. But like through interacting with them, having one-on-one conversations, them interacting with my email campaigns or my social media, again, I'm able to segment these people to different offers. And so, like I said, the crossroads that I'm finding myself at is, there are people who are following my message, but not super qualified to do the stuff that, is super one-on-one, right? Yeah. So like a info product might help them get to that point eventually.
Right.
Transaction, again, building more rapport, deepening the relationship through that transaction. They get the wins, and so when they get the wins, they want to go back to the source of wins, which hopefully is me, right?
Yep.
That's how that works. That's how.
Wow. Okay, so if someone's in the audience and they are they're an entrepreneur, they sell a widget, they sell a program, they are a speaker, they're a whatever. And I also need to ask you too, how does all this work with the groom to be and dad roles too? So I mean, mixing that all together, it's a pretty big pot that you got to swim in, mix it all together. So, but let's start with someone in the audience that needs to really hone their sales skills or their marketing skills. What would you suggest they do first?
Talk to more people. I mean, sometimes that's nerve-wracking in it of itself, right? Yeah. But and like, oh, I'm going to start selling. I need to work on my sales skills. Well, kind of going back to that metaphor or that analogy that we were playing with earlier, people are like, okay, so I call somebody on the phone. What do I say? Well, what would you say to a pretty girl or a handsome guy to get their attention? Like, start small. You don't have to use all of the bullets, right? Because that's going to come on super strong.
Don't shoot them down, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to come on super strong, and you'll also, and their defenses will go up, right? Yep. But you, through each of your touch points, each of your exchanges and conversation, you're learning things. You're learning things about them. That's how you qualify them. That's how you know whether or not you want to keep talking to them.
Yes.
So start small. I mean, I'm always a big proponent of, if you have a thing to sell, just go meet those people in person. If you're selling, you have an ads agency, walk into the dentist office, try to speak to the dentist, try to find the guy who owns the place. Yes. And if you didn't connect with them, you dropped your card off, look him up on LinkedIn. And when he accepts your request, say hi. Don't
yeah.
Try it's sales doesn't happen in one fall swoop. It's an accumulation of nudges. Yeah. You're nudging deals along. Yeah. You're not taking big sweeping actions to close deals. You're you're getting somebody's attention, you're exchanging in a dialogue, you're winning their permission to sell after you've qualified, and then you're going through a discovery phase. And each of those are little touches. It takes time. And so through marketing and through different types of automation, you can be more efficient, right? And use your one-on-one time where it's absolutely needed and supplement it with technology elsewhere. But yeah, my number one tip is, if you're if you know you need to work on your sales skills, talk to more people, talk to customers, talk to other sellers. You know, you might start to surprise yourself with how many opportunities you just stumble into by talking to people.
Oh my
You
goodness,
know, even
yes.
if they're not qualified, they might know somebody who's qualified or know something about the market. Every conversation is feedback and market research and self education. So just talk to
Yes.
more people.
You can't catch a fish unless you cast your line
Hmm.
over and over and over again. Right? I mean, the fish aren't going to jump out of the lake into your boat. You got to cast the line, and you got to keep casting the line and keep casting the line. Go into a different part of the lake, cast your line again, cast your line again. It's over and over and over and over, communicating, talking to people, right?
Hmm.
And then sometimes you're fishing for rainbow trout, but you caught a bass. So you're going to throw that bass back, and
Hmm.
you're going to keep fishing for rainbow trout.
Yeah, I mean, you can't sit back and not and expect the opportunities to come to you. You have to go out, you have to splash things around. You know, you have to make a few waves, and that's how you create your own luck. Because sometimes, like, we get discouraged, you know, us sellers, like, oh, this happened, but that was a lucky thing. Well, it was lucky because you went out there and,
Yeah.
you know, made some waves, tossed up
Yeah.
a little dirt, and that's how you were able to, or turned over rocks.
Yeah.
Only by turning over the rocks do you find the worms underneath them that you can use to go, you know, put on your fish hook and then cast,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes.
Each of these is a step on the way to a sale. And, you know, not everyone is the victory you were looking for, but that feedback is a victory in itself.
Oh my goodness, yes. All right. So now tell me about the becoming a husband pretty soon and the kid. I mean, how are you fitting that all into this mix of being an entrepreneur and a salesperson and all that kind of stuff?
So the grand vision, right, is to be of service to people, you know, work in a way that doesn't bind people to me, that we choose to work with each other in our work when it ends, because eventually it'll probably all end, right? You know, for one reason or another, they can build upon what momentum we built up. They don't have to start back over at scratch, or at zero.
Right.
And you know, I want to enjoy everything that I do. I want to enjoy being with my family, you know, integrating my family into my business. Right now, that's most most frequently happening via the podcast, right? So, um, you know, I thought about how great of an idea it would be for somebody to write a book about, you know, how an entrepreneur sells, how an entrepreneur or a salesperson raises a family. And I was like, you know, oh, I could write that. Well, no, I can't. Slow down. I'm only 3 years into being a father. I'm not even married yet. What do I really know about these things? I'm learning myself. So I could go out and interview a bunch of people, right? And so that's how I'm integrating that. That's how I'm trying to become a better father. That's how I'm trying to become, you know, a husband that my soon to be bride, you know, is excited and energized by. Yeah, that's how I'm integrating it today.
Wow, that's fantastic. What a proactive way to do it. I bet you've gotten a lot of feedback and information that you went, oh, well, I'm not doing that one. Oh, yeah, I'm really doing that one.
Hmm.
I can
Well, and
imagine.
it's interesting too, because like this, you know, follow your curiosity, you know, chase your not your bliss, but your blisters, the things you're willing to work at, right? And
Yes.
keep you know, diving down those rabbit holes, because it's funny, like you start to, as you do that and as you lean into your strengths, you start to develop others, or start to develop associations with areas of the world or markets that you never thought you would deal in. But then once you're down that rabbit hole, it's so obvious to you, right? And
Yes.
so some of the stuff that I'm doing with the podcasting, right? We haven't even launched iTunes yet, but we've, you know, almost 30 interviews in, you know, your interview among them, being streamed live to Facebook. So there's buzz being created before we even launch to iTunes. And so there's a whole launch, you know, campaign in place and already starting,
Yeah.
for when we go to iTunes, so that we can leverage that thing. And so, kind of coming back to what you were talking about, is build upon your experience. Don't try to start over from scratch, but find ways to not make a left turn, but pivot slightly so that you can use the momentum rather than lose the momentum.
Definitely. Oh my goodness, yes. How wonderful. And I can't wait. You know, that's a great marketing tool to start with, streaming live to Facebook and then go, because you'll hopefully have an audience who will then want to keep consuming or tell people about it when it
And
gets to iTunes.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because for me, the decision to stream to Facebook first was minimally viable product, right?
Yeah.
Your content is a product, right?
Yes, it is.
You're either using it to sell your service, or you're using it to sell your service plus you're selling ads, or there's a lot of different ways to monetize it, right? And for me, it was a question of bandwidth. Like I don't know how to edit. I don't really know that much about the back end of these things. I'm not a tech guy. I go out and talk to people. I dialed the phone,
Right.
like that. Those are my skill sets, right? So it was bandwidth. I could set up interviews. I could interview people. I could ask really interesting questions. Those are things I could do. I could play journalist, right? I couldn't write that book, but I could play journalist.
Right.
And maybe over the period of time of playing journalist, I could become the guy who writes that book, right?
Yes, and not only that, with all of the information. So that's one of the things I think that you're going to find is awesome for your podcast, and that is you can take and gather because you're learning so much, right? So you can take and gather all that information, and you're probably going to have, if you look at it, some consistencies, some things that people regularly talk about. There's your book. So you can use that because this is your content. You own it, right? You are the producer of it. And even when people you interview, you own the content. So you have permission, because you're the one that published it online, you have permission to use it in your book. And so you can take those interviews and say, because so-and-so said, and you can say it as a fact, as something that because you learned it from this person. You can say, this, you should do this, that, and the other thing. And here's an example of that with a quote from one of your interviews and a link to that show. I mean, it'll help you build that business, build that book pretty quickly.
The whole thing is being cognizant of your bandwidth and validating ideas, right?
Yeah.
So minimally viable product, stream it live, no post-production, very low technology barrier to get over, prove the concept, create a following around it. Okay, now it's worth me paying somebody else to edit and upload and do all those things that I don't want to learn and don't have time to learn.
That's right.
And again, as the podcast grows, there's an audience for this book, and we know what to put in that book because people were interacting with the content live or, leaving comments, etc.
That's it.
So
that's it. That's amazing. What an amazing thing. You've proved the concept. You've went ahead and created the audience. The audience came. They wanted what you said. Now you're putting it in another format. I mean, it's just a beautiful
kind of
thing.
It's kind of like that sales funnel we were talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. See how we do this. See what we do in this place.
Validate the prospect by selling them something small. If they're not going to buy the small thing, they sure as heck aren't going to buy the big thing.
Nope.
So don't waste your time trying to sell the big thing until they buy the small thing.
Yes. All right. So, Brendan, you need to tell us a little bit more about where people can find you, and also about your podcast or about your page and your Facebook Lives, and when you think your podcast might be coming and all that good stuff. So tell them where they can get onto this ship.
So all of my content is at startinphoenix.com. That's the blog that has taken many pivots through this experience of validating ideas, right? So it's startinphoenix.com, startinphx.com. If you're interested in the podcast, you can actually submit questions to be answered on future episodes of the show by visiting startinphoenix, so startinphx.com/family. And when you submit a question to be answered by a future guest of the show, you'll also get access to the Double My Revenue 7-Day Sales Challenge, which is a 7-day email sequence supplemented with audio and video interviews and different types of content to help you walk through the process of, dialing into your why based on who you are and what's important to you, what you should be selling, who you should be selling to, how you should be selling it to them, and how to develop over time a value ladder that helps you do all of these things that we were talking about today. So again, you can submit a question and get more information about the show at startinphoenix.com/family. And all of the interviews are available on the Start in Phoenix page already. So on Facebook, we're Start in Phoenix. Again, Start in PHX.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me, and thank you for reciprocating, letting me on your show and now coming on my show. I know we had a lot to talk about there and talked a lot about sales and marketing and all in family and all that kind of stuff. So it was a blast. So please, everybody listening, go listen and go watch those videos. It was really fun to do. And we pretty much end most of our episodes with kind of what you and I started talking about, which was, hey, it's a beautiful day. We woke up. It was a great thing. So I'm just going to say to you, thank you so much and enjoy the journey.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for being on my show. It's a blast to talk to you each time. So thank you.
To get powered up for your day, just go to parententrepreneur.power.com and listen to any one of the over 100 episodes we've had so far with amazing entrepreneurs just like you. It might just help you feel like a grown-up again.